Hi guys, and welcome back to the Female Fitness Podcast. I'm your host, Danni, and today I am joined by Emma again. This time we are going to base this podcast around Female Force, which, if you don't know, is one of Emma's businesses, kind of. So
Yeah.
Emma, would you like to tell us a little bit about Female Force and what made you want to get started with it?
Yeah, so Female Force is a charity that I've founded, and the reason why I set up this charity is because I was in a domestically violent relationship, and I wanted to use my own experience and help others. I was in that relationship about 3 years ago. It was a really, really dark time for me. Whilst I was in it, I kind of didn't realize that it was toxic. I didn't know the red flags and the warning signs. I'd never been in a relationship like that before. And I just really wanted to use my platform to help others who may be in the same or similar situation. I wanted to somehow inform people of that kind of relationship and what it's like to be in it, and how you can seek help, how you can get out of it, and how you can prevent it. So I started kind of talking about my experience about maybe 2 years ago. And when I started to talk about it, I realized that there was a lot of other females that were going through the same thing or had experienced something similar. And it was actually quite scary and worrying that so many females go through this as well. And I just thought, what can I do? What can I do to help others? And that's kind of where Female Force was born, really. I thought, how can I inform other females? How can I help prevent this? How can I kind of make it a tool and a platform to not educate, but really inform. What I did with Female Force was I just kind of started a new platform for it on social media. And I spent a lot of time thinking, what would be the best way to inform other people? And what I kind of decided was that I needed to start to build awareness around it, really, and almost shed some light on it as well. So I created an event called Female Force, where females can come to the event. We address the red flags, the different types of abuse. So there's everything from physical to emotional to money related, finance related as well. There's many different levels to it. So I held the first event in February. And we really spoke about the different types of domestic violence and domestic abuse and that kind of thing. And then we also started to learn the fundamentals and the basics of self-defense as well. Which, can really come into play, because if you find yourself in that situation, sometimes you don't know what to do. And thinking back to my own experience, I always thought, if I'd known about self-defense, would I have been able to defend myself? Would the outcome have been a little bit different? Would it have prevented the abuse getting even worse? If I had have known where to go to and how to get help, maybe I might have been able to get out of that relationship quicker. Because I think a lot of the time females, they feel isolated when they're in that situation, and they don't know how to get out as well. So I brought in some other people that had similar experiences. I brought in a friend that is a solicitor and deals with these kinds of situations. So we were able to really cover the warning signs and the red flags. We covered the self-defense, and then we also spoke about how you can get help moving forwards as well. So that's really what Female Force is about. moving forward, so at the moment what we've done is we've got the platform on social media. We're starting to build the awareness on that platform. We've held the event. The goal is to hold as many events as possible across, mainly in my area first of all, which is Yorkshire, and then further down the line roll it out as much as possible across the UK, and just really get the message out to all females from all ages, all backgrounds, that that this is not normal, and you don't have to be in a relationship like that, and that there is help really as well.
I think the self-defense is a great idea as well, because it not only teaches you how to defend yourself, but I think it can make people feel stronger in themselves and empowered to some extent, because they know that they can protect themselves, and it's a really empowering thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it gives females that confidence, because the self-defense, it's really quite basic. And even when I was learning it in the workshop, I didn't realize, there is really simple techniques that you can use to really defend yourself. And we're not taught that. And also I think as well, the informed side of it is super important, because also you don't kind of know about it until you're in it. And you don't know the red flags that are leading up to really the physical abuse side of it.
And I suppose if you're not aware of it, you might almost question yourself if you're in that position. Which I suppose can be really common. And the events, Emma, are they open to both people that have suffered and people that haven't suffered with it in the past?
Yeah, the events, they're completely open. Anyone can come to the events. The goal is to just really spread as much awareness as possible. And just let females know this is not normal. This is what can happen. This can sometimes be the outcome. Let's try and prevent that as much as possible. Let's shed as much light on it as we possibly can as well. I think just with my own experience, I'll talk a little bit about that as well, because when I first got into the relationship, it seemed like the best thing ever. And when you're dealing with someone like that, they're very charming. They tell you everything that you want to hear. They give you so much love and attention. They make you feel so special. But what they also can do is, because they take you to that level, they can really pull that away from you within a moment. And that's the control that they have. And it's almost like when the relationship switches, it's unbelievable. It's like, how can this be happening? This person that loves me so much wants to harm me and be physically harmful towards me. It's really hard to get your head around. And for me, I was stuck in that relationship. I didn't know how to get out safely, because they really get in your head. And it's really hard to break away, and that's a cycle of the abuse as well. And there's many different levels to it. I mean, it's not always physically abusive. Sometimes it's just more mental, and they really get into your head. And that also is something to really, really difficult to break away from.
And what was, when you were in this relationship, Emma, what was the sort of turning point for you, and when did you sort of like realize that it was what it was, sort of thing?
Probably really when the physical abuse started. I mean, the first time it happened, I broke off the relationship, and but like I said, they're very manipulative. So they start to draw you back in. And the first time it happens, it's so unbelievable, but you almost give them benefit of the doubt, because they say, oh, I'm going to change. I've never done this before. And then in looking back now, that was a huge red flag. I shouldn't really have gone back into the relationship. But unfortunately, I did get back into it. And then the second time the abuse was even worse. And by that stage, you're actually scared because you know what that person is capable of.
Yeah.
And the only way I was able to really get out was that I had to go to the police, because
Yeah.
the second time round it was really, really, really bad. And I was lucky enough that I had or I have a really great friend who works within the police. And when I spoke to her about what had happened, she said to me, this is not normal, Emma. Like, this shouldn't be happening. We need to go to the police. And that's what we did. And once I had initiated that process, I was then almost protected by the police, because they really coached me out of it and they stepped in. So in essence, it was kind of taken out of my hands.
Yeah.
And that's really where the relationship was done, because then the police were involved.
Yeah.
And I felt like then I had a sense of security, because it wasn't just me that was trying to deal with it.
Yeah.
But you know, for any other female that's in this kind of relationship or going through it, if you feel that something isn't right in your gut, and even if it's like maybe a mental level of abuse, if it doesn't feel right, then generally it isn't. But I think the difficulty is that females, they either feel scared to leave, or they're not in a position where they can leave. And really, that's where I want Female Force to be able to give females the tools or the support to be able to leave. So that's really an area that we're trying to work with other charities that have these tools available, that can really help females exit toxic, harmful relationships like this. So that's really an area that we're focusing on as well. So if we can work with other charities to almost help funnel females or send them in that direction, because even when I was in it, I didn't realize that there is charities out there that they like Women's Shelter, they can help you leave and exit the relationship. They can give you somewhere safe to stay, and they can give you advice. So there is actually a lot out there, but I just don't think it's very widely known until you're in it to such an extent that you then start to look for help. And sometimes by that stage, the abuse, on whatever level it is, it's catastrophic. Like, it's on such a high level that you do feel trapped.
Yeah, I think what you're doing is great. And with the events, do you plan to do more of these events when the coronavirus situation is all over?
Yeah, so after we held the first event in February, what we started to do is we started to apply for funding, which will really give us the opportunity to really push Female Force and get the funding behind it to do what we want to do. And the goal is now to continue on social media, on the platforms, just spreading awareness as much as possible, telling other people's stories, and then we started to build a website as well, so people can go there and have somewhere to go where they can find out about the next event. If they need some sort of immediate help, there is someone there to do that. That there is other charities within the website where they can go, okay, I need aid, I need help, I need shelter. We can't offer that, but if we can help people know where they can go, then that's a huge, huge stepping stone.
Yeah. And for people listening, like, how can they look at maybe getting involved in the events or helping you out if maybe there's a charity or anything like that?
Yeah, anybody that wants to help. So what happened with the first event was there was lots of people that came on board and said, I'd like to come, and I did one of my ladies, Sam, she came and sold cakes, which helped raise money towards the event. I luckily had self-defense instructors that were happy to be on board and offer their services and teach the self-defense side of the workshop. I had other ladies that were happy to tell their stories and their experience, because I think when you, because this is so diverse and there's so many different elements of it and there's so many different experiences, there's my experience, and then there's someone else who I had one of my ladies, and she was in a toxic marriage for I think it was like 10 years plus, and it took her a long time to find the strength to get out of that. And I think when other females were sat in that room and they were maybe in the same situation or had been through it, when you hear someone else's story and you can really resonate with that, it makes you feel like you're not alone. And also that's something else that I want to create as well, because you do feel really isolated and you sometimes feel like it's just you against the world. And if you can use my platform and obviously all of the females that I come into contact with, and I can connect those females and we almost feel like we are a force, then it really does give you another element of confidence and strength, and it can give you the strength and the confidence to exit those relationships. Because I think a lot of females, they end up stuck in those relationships, for whether it's financial, whether it's because you've got children together, or you've got a business together, or your families are really intertwined. There's so many reasons why females end up staying, and it's really given them the strength and the optimism that there is life outside of this relationship. You don't have to stay in it. If it is toxic, you deserve more. And there's ways and means that we can really help to get you out of that. So the main goal is really from my part is just to raise awareness, have a platform where females can go where they feel safe as well. And if my story, if me speaking about my story and my experience can help other females, if it helps just one female, that's a huge part of the goal for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think when people hear someone else talk about something that they're going through, it can really it can almost confirm that what they're going through isn't right, and it can also improve their confidence to speak out about what they're going through as well. So I think that's really good. And just so people know who are listening, if anyone is going through anything that is similar to what you're talking about right now, if they contacted you or like messaged through Female Force, is that all confidential, and can they open up? And
yeah, absolutely. I am completely confidential. It's not within my interest to really speak about anyone else's experience. My objective is just to really help direct females where they can get help that they need. I mean, when I spoke about my own experience, it was really overwhelming, the amount of females that opened up. And a lot of females said to me, I've never told anyone this before, or I'm in this right now. And when you speak to another female and they're going through that in that moment in time, it's really heartbreaking. And if I can just create a channel where they can find out the steps that they can take to really help them, then that's a huge part of the goal.
yeah, definitely. And if anyone is in a situation like that, what are sort of the number, the 1, 2, 3 things that you would recommend doing first? Would it be like talking to a friend about it, or what would you recommend doing first if you have any doubts that you're in some sort of an abusive relationship?
Yeah, there's so many things that we can do. I mean, if someone is going through that situation, there's apps. Off the top of my head, I think one of them's called In the Sky. I will double check that. But there's apps that you can have on your phone that are hidden, or they appear to be something else, where you can store messages. So sometimes, like, we don't have all of the evidence that we need. And sometimes abusers can be very clever, and they don't, you don't always have the evidence to maybe go to the police. So you can start to log and save things, whether they're messages or emails, or even if they're pictures of abuse that have happened, then you can store them there. I would really advise someone who is going through something to tell a friend, or reach out, and just, there's charities out there that will help.
Yeah.
You know, Women's Aid, Women's Shelter. Go to them. Don't be scared. No one's going to judge you, and you know, and you're not the only person that is going through this. And I think a lot of the times females feel isolated. So start to just really log what's going on. So you've almost got a diary of it. So if it comes to the stage where you need to go to the police, like luckily for me, I had every single message that had ever been sent to me, and the police took that from me, which really, really helped my case, because mine ended up in court and there was the conviction at the end of it as well. So I think a lot of females are scared that, you know, it's not big enough to go to the police. Go to the police, because they are there to help. They do want to help you, and obviously when you go to them, it is completely confidential, and they will try and they won't try, they will support you as much as you will let them as well.
Yeah, I think that's great. And what are the sort of main red flags to look out for, and are there any particular characteristics of a person which might indicate that they are someone who might inflict some sort of abuse?
Yeah, so you generally find that initially it's mental abuse first of all, which then kind of develops and escalates. If someone is trying to control you and they're trying to manipulate you, they're huge red flags. If someone shows initially, if they show you that they're trying to maybe control who you spend time with, or they want to know where you are, what you're doing, who you're spending time with. If they try and stop you from seeing certain people, huge red flag. Looking back for me now, they were there. All of those red flags were there, and I just wasn't really aware of them. And that's why I think the informed part of Female Force is so important.
Yeah.
Because if you can kind of start to identify those red flags, then in the very beginning, before the relationship really even develops, you can go, this is not right, this is not correct, and you can step away. So if someone is trying to dictate to you what you should be doing, anything like that, that's a huge aspect of it. If they have a short temper, if they're aggressive towards you, this also huge red flag. It really isn't normal. And I think the danger is, what happens is, because it starts in the beginning, and usually it is so small, because these people, they're really good at keeping up appearances, because usually someone who is violent or an abuser, they're good at this. They've usually got it down to a fine art, and you really need to try and see through that. And those early warning signs and red flags, they're really crucial. And you have to pay attention to them. And I even think in the beginning for me, because if I had paid attention to that, I probably wouldn't have got into the relationship as far as I did. And they always tend to find a way to really creep back in. And I think you just have to, when you cut the cord, you have to fully cut it and not allow yourself to go back, no matter what they say and do to you. And it's really a case of, you have to cut them out and keep them out, because they will try to keep coming back again and again and again. That's one of the biggest traits of a narcissist. Like they are manipulative, they are controlling, and they will always try and win you round. And it's almost a constant tug of war. They give you what you want to hear, how you want to feel, especially with the feelings. They're very clever at that. They make you feel a certain way, and that almost becomes addictive. Because of the way they make you feel, that's how they manage to either draw you back in or keep you there. Because it's a form of love bombing. They make you feel so on top of the world, but when they pull you back down, you still got that feeling that they gave you when they made you feel so special, or they made you feel so loved. And that's why it's sometimes so difficult to comprehend it, because when someone makes you feel that fantastic, when they take you to that low, you're still holding on to the high point and how that made you feel.
Yeah.
But I really think deep down, if you've got a really strong gut feeling that something isn't healthy or it isn't normal, then generally it isn't.
Yeah, and I suppose they almost play on your feelings, and you know, you can't help your feelings towards somebody, and
Absolutely.
if you're in a relationship, you're always going to remember the good feelings that you have, like you said.
Yeah, and I think especially like, say for example, the relationship was to break up and then they try and get back together with you. I think we very easily forget the bad things anyway, even when it's a normal relationship, because we hold on to the good part, and you want that back. So if you have broken up with someone and they were either mentally or physically abusive, make a list of all of the bad things that happened, and it's the smallest things to the biggest things, and generally you find out that those begin to outweigh the good.
Yeah.
So when you're questioning yourself, and which you also start to do, you question your own self. You start to think, oh, did I make that more than it was? Maybe, did I make him respond like that? Did I make him hit me? Which to think about now is crazy, because no one should ever go to that level.
Yeah.
No form of abuse is acceptable, whether it's physical, whether it's mental. It's not normal and it's not healthy and it shouldn't happen. But what starts to happen is that level of abuse becomes normal. And there was moments where I was in situations where we would become vocally abusive towards each other, and that's not me. I'm not that kind of aggressive, and I don't talk like that. But because that became normal for me in that relationship, it was a normal reaction.
Yeah.
So once you allow certain levels, what you tend to find is those levels, they get higher and bigger. I mean, sometimes the first time you experience physical abuse, it might just be something like they might just hit you in the face, but then you allow that, and then the next time they don't just hit you in the face, they actually, I don't know, they punch you in the face, or they beat you up over, it's not just a hit, it's they beat you up over it, I don't know, 10-20 minutes. Every time for them, once you allow something, they will go to the next level the next time it happens. And I think in the very beginning, if you have a bar and you set it, I mean, like I said, no level of abuse is acceptable, but the moment it happens, you have to say, this is not acceptable, I am not allowing it. And you really, I think when anyone is that level of abusive, you need to get out, because generally it doesn't end well.
And you've spoken a little bit about physical abuse. So what are the different forms of abuse, and do they commonly cross over, or is it usually just one kind of abuse that someone inflicts?
There's many different levels of abuse, and this is something I covered in the Female Force event. So there's many signs of, I'm going to go through emotional abuse first of all, because that's generally where it all starts. And we just really sometimes just don't see it. So the signs of emotional abuse can be frequently blames or criticizes you. They call you names, often claiming to be joking, because what they sometimes do is they say something and then they go, oh, but I'm only joking, or it's a joke. But usually when they're a narcissist, they really mean it. But again, they're playing that tug of war with you. They can ridicule your beliefs, your religion, your race. And also, which is just something which is such a red flag, this one, is they blame you for causing the abuse. And that can be emotional or physical. They blame you. You made me do that. You pushed me to that level. No level of abuse is acceptable.
Yeah.
And you are never to blame. You know, no matter how far they make you feel like you push them, it's never acceptable for it to get to that level. If they criticize or threaten to hurt your family or friends, another huge red flag. They isolate you from family and friends, which is something I've mentioned already. Another huge red flag of an abuser or a narcissist is they abuse animals, and that for me was a huge red flag, because when I was in that situation, my partner, who was abusive, he was horrible to my dog. And at the time, he made a joke of it. It was almost like it was funny to him. I remember once coming home from work, and in the house that I lived in, I had a basement. And I came in and I was like, what's that noise coming from the basement? What? And it was a crying noise. And I realized it was my dog. And I said to my partner, I said, why is Harry, why is he in the basement? Why is he crying? And he was laughing and he thought it was funny. And at that point, I thought,
there's something not right.
There's something not right here. And I remember he told me a story, which he thought was really funny. He said that once him and his friends were, they were in someone's house and there was a cat on a skylight, and they flipped the skylight open so the cat flew off. And I was like, that's not normal. Like, where's your empathy? And that is another huge red flag. If an abuser has no empathy, they have no afterthought of what they do to someone, no guilt. And that is huge. You generally find that someone that's got no empathy, they're very, very dangerous, because they have no feelings or thoughts of what they do to someone, and they have no guilt. And that's really, really scary. If they're angry when you pay too much attention to someone else or something else, so that could be your children, your friends, and your job. My ex was very jealous of me working. I remember at certain stages, he was so controlling and manipulative. I'd finish work at the gym and I'd have to lie to him and say, oh, I'm still working. I'm at the gym working. And I used to have to go to Starbucks and do all of my online work there, because if I went home and continued to work, he would get really, really mad because I wasn't giving him all of my attention.
Yeah.
Again, looking back now, I'm like, that's not normal. But because you're so caught up in the relationship, and they're little things, you generally find there's lots of little things that start to add up. And then when you start to add them up, you start to realize that's not normal. I mean, if someone humiliates you, also not a good trait. If they do not include you in important decisions, they don't allow you to sleep, they repeatedly harass you about things you did in the past. He used to do that to me all the time. Like, he would say things to me like, you're a nobody, you think you're this great athlete and you're not, you're never going to be a champion. He used to really try and grind me down, and he used to do that in the heat of the moment, which then you sometimes try and say, oh, he was only saying that because he was mad.
Yeah.
I would never say that to someone. I would never try and ridicule someone or bring them down or make personal insults, because I have empathy, and I wouldn't feel comfortable after I'd said that, so I would just never say it. So there's so many levels. So they take your car keys away, your money, your credit cards. So obviously that then makes you reliant upon them. They take away your freedom almost.
Yeah, take away your what's the word? Your independence. So you're reliant upon them.
Yes, which is another reason why people find themselves staying and they're stuck in that relationship, because they take away your freedom, they take away your confidence, they take away your right to do anything that you would do without them. So it makes you reliant upon them. They check up on you, listen to your phone calls, look at your phone bills, check your car mileage, which sounds really extreme, but it happens. They check where you are, they check who you're spending time with, which is a really massive, huge red flag. I mean, it can be so extreme that they tell people that you suffer from mental illness, and that they use that to justify their own stress and behavior. So, oh, she's crazy, she's got issues. there's something wrong with her, she's insecure. They kind of flip it, which really where the emotional abuse comes in.
Yeah, I think a general sign as well of flipping that on its head and looking at it in reverse, like looking for signs of a healthy relationship. A sign of a healthy relationship is if you do have independence as well as enjoying your partner's company and not being completely reliant upon them to the point where if you feel like they were taken away, you wouldn't be able to like deal with just being on your own.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's how they make you feel. They make you feel like you wouldn't be able to cope without them. And what you have to think as well, yeah, what is healthy in a relationship? Your partner should be there to support you, encourage you to go and be the best version of yourself. You should have your own independence. You shouldn't be completely reliant upon each other. You should have your own friends. You should be successful in your job. You should have your own things going on. And if someone is stopping you from doing that, then it is a huge aspect of control and manipulation, because they essentially want to control everything that you do, because that gives them power. And a lot of the time it does come down to that other person, the abuser, for some reason, that is something maybe that has happened to them as a child, or they need some sense of self-gratification, that they need that power. They need to feel like they're in control of you, because then that feeds their ego.
Yeah, I think female force providing this awareness is going to be a game changer, and like I think it could go so far. What is your ultimate vision for female force?
My ultimate vision is to inform females as much as possible across as many different spectrums, as many different females, really just inform them what is right and wrong in a relationship. And the end goal is, the end goal for me would be to get this, across the nation. And for it, I'd actually love it to be part of the school curriculum almost, that females are taught what is right and wrong. Because sometimes as well, for young females, and I think as well now, especially with where technology is, where social media is, I think it almost amplifies how people can control and abuse people. And if you are taught at that age where you're starting to get into relationships that this is not right, this is how a relationship would be, then we're far more aware of what is right and what is wrong, what the red flags are, how we can identify how someone is treating us. And for me, that is really, really the end goal. I mean, there's probably a long way to go before I get there, but I really just want to create a platform where females feel safe, that they can come somewhere as well and just get the help that they need.
Yeah, I think teaching people at a young age would be a game changer, because like you said, once you start to normalize something, that can just almost get worse and worse, because you normalize a certain behavior which isn't positive, and then you start to take it a little bit further and normalize something which is a little bit worse than that, and then it just kind of escalates. So I think if you can teach people at a young age what is a healthy relationship, and what are the warning signs of a not so healthy relationship, that would be a game changer.
Yeah, absolutely, because really essentially that's where it begins. And I mean, there's many factors to it and many levels. And some victims, they are brought up in a toxic environment, so sometimes what they see from their parents is what they think is normal. And you actually tend to find that an abuser, they are a product of their environment. Usually they've experienced some kind of trauma as a child. They've watched a parent being abused, whether that is emotional, physical, or even sometimes sexual. And then for them, that becomes normal. That becomes a normal relationship to them. So I think if we can inform females or males even at a young age that this is not normal, this is not how you should treat someone, then that like you said would be a huge game changer.
Yeah. And do you have any sort of like dates or anything penciled in for the next event? I know it's hard with the coronavirus.
Yeah, we don't have anything at the moment. What we're just doing is we are working kind of on the back end of things. So we're applying for funding, which at the moment as well has slightly been put on pause. Just because obviously there's, with COVID going on, there's the funding pots aren't quite readily available. So what we're doing is we're working on the website. So that's in development at the moment. So hopefully when we're back to a sense of normality, I can just really pick the ball up with it again and get things moving. I'm trying to just build relationships with other charities that are well known. So like I said, I can almost create a funnel where I can direct females to them. And also if they've got females that are going through something, or they want to be put into the self-defense program, that are coming out of an abusive relationship, to really help work on their self-confidence. And the self-defense side of things, it's also there as a tool to rebuild a female. So I don't just want to deliver it to, because you don't know when you're going to end up in an abusive relationship. But what I want to do is deliver a program for a small group of females, from anything from like 5 to 10 females that have been through something that has been abusive. And we use the self-defense as a tool to build up their self-confidence, their self-belief, their self-worth. And moving forwards, then they can start to have a different life, be more confident, be in healthy relationships, and know that they are worth more than the relationship that they were in.
Yeah, I think that's great, and I think it'll be so successful. So where can people find information about Female Force, and where are you on social media?
Yep, so you can come direct through my own personal platform, which is Emma Hyndman, the Posing Pro. But if you want to go direct to Female Force, it is at Female Force 1, which is on Instagram. I also have a private group on Facebook, which is Female Force. And then hopefully within the next few months, we'll have the website, which is femaleforce.org.
Cool, perfect. I'll link all of those in the comment section below, Emma, so people can find you nice and easily. But thank you so much for joining us today. It was a really good podcast, and I think Female Force will be such a positive thing to sort of get out there. So good luck with all of that, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me on again.
Thank you for listening, guys.